Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. I hope you're enjoying this. I actually am. I'm digging into some of my favorite box sets, and I haven't looked at some of these in years and years and years. And thanks for the request from one of my viewers to do this series. I'm this week focusing on some of the cool Rolling Stones box sets, and today I'm going to be doing this one, this monstrous, beautiful, gorgeous box set from Alan Klein, Abco. They put out of Charlie Is My Darling. Now, if you're not a really big Rolling Stones fan, you're probably like, what the hell is Charlie Is My Darling? Good question. Let's talk about it. But before we do, if you're a new viewer, please hit subscribe, please hit like, help my channel to grow. It's only growing little increments. I'm doing this 2 years, so I would really appreciate it. Now, back in the day, before there was the internet, believe it or not, there was a time before the internet, and before there was MTV, although MTV never would have played this, even when they were playing music, we used to have to read. And I used to have these cool books, and I still do. And I used to read a lot, and I still do. And this was a book called Rock on Film. And if you looked on this under C, and you looked under Charlie Is My Darling, there would be this little bit right there, Charlie Is My Darling. And it was a Rolling Stones film from 1965. And a documentary, the Rolling Stones' 1965 two-day tour of Ireland, interviews with fans, and the Stones themselves take much of the film's running time, with only a brief amount of footage used for live performances with versions of The Last Time and It's Alright. The band's also viewed backstage, jamming on old music hall ditty, Maybe It's Because I'm a Londoner. They get in and out of limos and off stage, and accompanied by a soundtrack of many of their recordings. That's the description there, and it says it's 50 minutes long, 50. Here is another great book, an illustrated record by Roy Carter. There was a whole series of these, and this was the Stones one. And in the back, I remember reading this. This was around 1976 this came out, and there was a filmography. And if you looked in the filmography, I remember this, well, there it is. And if you looked in the filmography, there was a thing right there that says, Charlie Is My Darling. 1965, Cinema Verite account of 2 days spent on tour in Ireland with the Rolling Stones. That is the perfect description. That's what it is. To me, well, I had never seen it. Nobody had seen it. Maybe it got a little view on TV, maybe in 1965, but how the hell were you ever going to see these things? It was just stuff that you read about. Until video came out. One of the greatest inventions, happiest times of my life was VHS and going to video stores and buying videotapes. And that's what you see right here. These three things are original videotapes that I was able to track down. And there it was. Video Warehouse was the label, and they actually put out Charlie Is My Darling on VHS. Right there, there's the fancy label right there. And that was back in 1988, I guess. So that's when I first saw Charlie Is My Darling by buying this VHS tape. And around the same time, they had also put out Sympathy for the Devil. This was Magnetic Video Corporation. If you're a VHS person, you might remember this stuff. These were the very, very, very first video companies. Video Warehouse also put Stones in the Park. What does it say there? 50-minute documentary. That was the Hyde Park concert. So these were the very, very first videos that ever came out. And they were pricey back in the day, and probably a little bit shady too. Whoever Video Warehouse was, don't really know. Magnetic Video I remember as well. So I finally got to see Charlie Is My Darling, and let's just say it was an underwhelming experience. Let's say it was a really poor man's version of, I don't know, maybe a shade of Hard Day's Night, only 1/100th as good. I do remember some scenes. There's a scene where the Stones are supposedly being chased by thousands of fans, and you hear the screaming, and they run down the steps, and they cross a railroad track and go up the other side to escape these fans. But you can tell there's no fans, and you can tell it's cans screaming. Really cheesy stuff. But also in this movie, they did have a couple of some great live footage of the Stones live in '65. Obviously, they were amazing. In 1965, nobody was like them. No offense to the Beatles, but they couldn't compete to the Stones live either. You know, Jagger was amazing. They had Brian Jones in the band, which was nice. And there's some interviews with the fans, and there's a scene I remember with Mick and Keith at a piano. Maybe they were drunk and they were singing like a bit of Elvis, I remember. But it's really not a great movie. Although there's an interview with Brian Jones and Charlie Watts, which was kind of cool, and I guess that's why they named it Charlie Is My Darling. So there's an old saying like, if you polish a turd, is it still a turd? Well, Alan Klein and Abco, boy, did they polish this thing, right? Look at the size of this immense box. I remember when they announced it, I'm like, they're going to put out a deluxe edition of Charlie Is My Darling? Are you shitting me? What the fuck is going to be in this monstrosity? Well, they really polished this turd up as great as you could polish it. Does it still smell? Well, it doesn't smell quite as turdy as it did. There's a couple of cool things on here. So let's dig into this monstrous Charlie Is My Darling Ireland 1965 box. They really did do a great job. So what does it come with? It comes with a DVD of Charlie Is My Darling and a Blu-ray. Now this is a pretty low budget film. So is there a really big difference between the Blu-ray and the DVD? Not to my old man eyes. This is what you get in this box. So you get the DVD and the Blu-ray in stereo and 5-point run surround sound. Again, this is a very low budget film. Now there's 3 different cuts of this film. God knows. There's the 65-minute full-time. There's a director's cut of 35 minutes and a producer's cut of 49 minutes. Really milking it. It does also come with a Charlie Is My Darling soundtrack. And it's an interesting soundtrack because it's kind of a mixture of the Stones, bits and pieces, some people talking to the fans, and there's also what they call the R&B Pop Symphony Orchestra doing bits and pieces of Stones tracks, and that's mixed throughout it. So it's kind of a jarring, kind of interesting listen. And then at the bottom, that's the gold mine on this thing. It's the Rolling Stones Live in England, 1965, on CD and on LP. And it's 13 songs in 28 minutes. But it is amazing. It's an awesome, awesome live show. Now, that's the whole show pretty much right there. You can see the track listing. If some of it looks familiar, well, it should, because the original Got Live If You Wanted EP, this is the EP, not the album. These songs, 1, 2, 3, 6 tracks on there. We Want the Stones, they credited, which is just the crowd saying We Want the Stones. But those 6 songs are in here. It's from the same shows. It's a far superior release than the official release called Got Live If You Wanted, which came out much later with a much different track listing. It's a much later show. And I never was a fan of the vinyl record because it's clipped. It's the introduction is not complete. It fades. When they remastered it and put it on CD, it was far superior. The full introduction, and then when they remastered it again as part of Abco's remastered series, it sounds as good as it possibly could. But of course, this is like a bastardized concert. You could tell some of it is really live, and some of it is clearly studio with screaming crowds put on it. I've Been Loving You Too Long is awful. It's clearly a studio recording, but not this Got Live If You Want It, which the whole concert is in his. So this is great. Let's open it up, shall we? So you saw the 2 discs. Let's use my legs as a thing. I showed you this part of it. You open it up further, and there is the soundtrack CD, and there is the Live in England 65 CD. That's the 28 minutes, and that's awesome. And it comes kind of like, ladies and gentlemen, gave you a real piece of film here. It's a blown up piece of film. I got Bill Wyman. And then you move it down, and it's beautifully packaged, as you can see. This thing just opens up. And then over here, it flips up again with, Irish fans are punching and talk about the Stones. And let me lay this flat now, so I don't damage it. And you get a reproduction of a poster from that time period. ABC Belfast, the Rolling Stones. So that's a nice touch. I guess that may have been one of the shows that they performed at that time. And then you get the hardcover book, which is actually pretty nice. Thin, but it's nice. Of Charlie Is My Darling. And let's show it to you. Liberated at last. Charlie Is My Darling. And obviously they cleaned it up beautifully. It's a million times better than my old VHS tape. But looks like that. And it is pretty cool. I mean, you know, seeing the Stones, what they were doing in 1965 and what they sounded like on stage and off stage, and hearing Brian Jones and Charlie Watts getting interviewed a little bit is pretty cool. I don't remember what I paid for this box. There shows you all the enlarged cells that they put in these boxes, and I got the Bill Wyman one. And there's some clippings from those 2 days on tour in Ireland and what the band looked like. And again, there's the soundtrack. It breaks it down. And there's the live set, 28 minutes. And that's what the book looks like. And then somewhere in here is the vinyl. Yep, buried in here. Hidden in here is the vinyl, which is the same as the CD. And there's the vinyl, Charlie Is My Darling. The whole 28 minutes fits on both sides of this, I guess it's like 10-inch vinyl. So there you have it. Charlie Is My Darling, the box set. You know, if you're a Rolling Stones completist, well, you gotta kind of have it, right? The Stones live in '65, doing their thing. Pretty interesting. But as far as a movie itself, yeah, you can still polish a turd, but it's still a turd. Just not nearly as smelly as it could have been. There's my review. Let me know what you think. Anybody else got this box? Have you seen Charlie Is My Darling? Have you ever seen these old Video Warehouse VHS tapes? Pretty cool, huh? Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit subscribe. Check out my other videos. Most importantly, stay safe. Stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to try to do another Stones one tomorrow. Another cool box set I really like. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you then.